अस्सलाम वालेकुम। प्रोग्राम एम्बेसी रोड में खुश आमदीद। नाज़रीन, आज हमारे मेहमान हैं पाकिस्तान में अफगानिस्तान के सफ़ीर जनाब मोहम्मद उमर दाऊदज़ई। वो कहते हैं कि पाकिस्तान मेरा दूसरा घर है और मैं यहाँ अजनबी नहीं हूँ, और है भी यही बात कि पाकिस्तान और अफगानिस्तान दो पड़ोसी ममालिक हैं। उनके ताल्लुकात जो हैं वो तारीख़ में पवस्त हैं, और हम दोनों अफगानिस्तान और पाकिस्तान मुश्तरका हमारी सरहद है, हमारा कल्चर मुश्तरक है, हमारा मज़हब, हमारी सकाफ़ती रवायात सब मुश्तरक है। हम आज उनसे गुफ्तगू करेंगे पाकिस्तान और अफगानिस्तान के ताल्लुकात के हवाले से, और जो ताल्लुकात मुस्तक़बिल में होंगे उनकी क्या नोयत होगी। और हम ये भी उनसे पूछेंगे कि जब अफगानिस्तान से अमेरिका और नेटो की फोर्सेस चली जाएंगी तो फिर क्या सूरत हाल होगी। Ambassador, thank you very much.
Most welcome. My pleasure.
For joining in this program. Ambassador, let's start with Pakistan-Afghanistan relations. The history of the relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan, although we are very good friends, we are neighbors, but it has been a troubled history for quite some time. What are the reasons according to you?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim once again, and assalamu alaikum to your viewers. And my apologies that I am not yet able to speak to you fluently in Urdu.
You will learn.
I hope I will be able to do it. I understand when you speak, but I cannot speak fluently. Now, in regard to the history of relationship of our two countries, I wouldn't say that there were trouble. There were misunderstanding parts in our relationship. And the way I put it is that, like you said in introduction, that we are two countries with almost everything in common, but yet sometimes we have misunderstanding. It's because sometimes we do learn our lessons the hardest way. Back in 70s, we had a bit of problem in our relationship, and then we learned the hardest way in 80s that we can't be separate. We have to be together because we had to fight a common enemy in the 80s. In the 90s, the same way. And now we are suffering from the same problem, same enemy. So its history is evident that since we have everything in common, the only way for us is to be together, to cooperate with each other, to take each other's hand at times of difficulties. People of this part of the world, there is one good thing about us, that we don't want to live in history. We always want to start fresh. Now, I'm not very much concerned that
we live in present and future.
In present and future. Why our relationship was troubled. That's good to analyze it for a lesson learning. But I would be focusing more on present and future.
We are, both Pakistan and Afghanistan are facing this scourge of terrorism. Do you think that the cooperation that is there between Afghanistan and Pakistan on terror, on war on terror, is satisfactory, or something more is required to be done?
I think there is always a room for improvement. There is always a room to improve our cooperation. I would say frankly that if there was sufficient level of cooperation between the two of us, the recent border incidents would not have happened. We could have prevented those easily. So another lesson learning is to improve within the areas of cooperation between the two of us. But we should not forget that in this war on terror, it's not the two of us only. There is
the entire world
is there. But anyway, the fire is on our side. The people of the two countries are burning in those fires. We are bearing the brunt of this problem. So we have to do more, and we have to do more together, and we have to do more honestly and genuinely together and in partnership.
You mentioned these border troubles which have erupted very recently, and when President Karzai was in Islamabad, this issue was raised, and he promised that he would go back, look into this whole affair, and he will try to stop this kind of skirmishes on the border of the two friendly countries. But still, there are some problems there. You know, even yesterday there was a report that some missiles were fired from Afghanistan into Pakistan. Can we put an end to this?
We can certainly put an end to this, and what President Karzai had promised, he did do it when he returned back home. But I think we should separate symptoms from the root causes. Some of those shells that are fired from one side to other, these are symptoms. The root causes are that we have a common enemy that is very clever and getting clever. That is the enemy of our friendship. That enemy doesn't want the two countries to get closer to each other and to have very good relationship. So our understanding is that they're playing with us. They cross to this side and they fire on that side. Then the next day they cross to that side and fire on this side. So that the armies of the two countries have a misunderstanding. But thanks God, fortunately, both sides realizes.
Ambassador, we have a mechanism to solve this kind of problems, and that mechanism is tripartite platform where Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the United States get together to assess this war on terror, and if there is a misunderstanding, that can be removed through this mechanism. Do you think that this mechanism is proving to be effective, or it is helping the two countries to overcome these problems?
That mechanism is not sufficient, and also some of the measures that were defined in that mechanism were not put in place in time. There were talk of a giant mechanism along the border, where in those kind of tensions they will get together and easily diffuse it and prevent it. But those mechanisms were not put in place. But my comment would be that that mechanism is not sufficient. We need to have strong bilateral mechanisms. That will be the most efficient mechanism.
Bilateral mechanism. And you said that these are symptoms, these missile fires or the rockets which are being fired, or just the symptoms of a real problem that is there on the ground. How can this problem be addressed effectively bilaterally between Afghanistan and Pakistan without involving the outside forces?
We could do this long ago, but we didn't have sufficient level of cooperation, I mean bilateral cooperation. Now we have the opportunity. Now we have just begun what you are alluding to, that we need to have more in-depth cooperation with each other to solve this problem. Now the problem is not so simple. It's a very complex situation. And like I said earlier, it's not only the two countries. There are many other players in this whole situation that have a stake. But as far as we two are concerned, I think we need to differentiate between the reconcilable and put our hands together and our energy together to bring to reconciliation the reconcilable. And those who are irreconcilable, then we need to come up with a joint strategy to deal with that.
We'll come to this problem of reconciliation, but before that, I want to ask you, Excellency, that Pakistan and Afghanistan have been discussing to put a fence on the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan. This proposal was made to Afghanistan and United States and NATO, but this was not put in practice. The second is that there were some other mechanisms, some technological measures which were to be taken to stop the crossing of these miscreants from this side into Afghanistan and from Afghanistan back into Pakistan. Why these steps have not been put in place so that we could effectively check the movement of such elements?
First of all, on fences, that was during previous regime in Pakistan. It was a Pakistan proposal during President Musharraf's time, and Afghans didn't like it. One of the reasons that we didn't like it is that we are not two countries like North and South Korea, so that we separate each other on fences.
Interrelated.
We are so interrelated, so friendly, so brotherly nations that we We need to find ways without fences, that we have peace on the border, that we have harmony on the border, and we have trade and business on the border. In reality, you know that along those border lines, there are tribes that are half on this side, half on that side. I mean, how can we put a wall like
Berlin Wall,
like Berlin Wall that nobody would like? Even those people would not like it. They would all become our enemy on both sides if we think of that wall. So that was a very impractical, unwanted solution, and that's why we rejected. We want a peace like between France and Germany. Like between any other peaceful nation, Canada and America. They have a border, but they move freely across the border with each other. They do business. We want that. And this terrorism is a temporary phenomenon. Now, we should not spoil thousands years old culture with a temporary phenomenon. We need to be more creative to find a solution for terrorism.
Ambassador, we'll continue this discussion. नाज़रीन, हम एक मुख्तसर ब्रेक लेते हैं और ब्रेक से वापसी के बाद हम पाकिस्तान में अफगानिस्तान के सफ़ीर से मज़ीद गुफ्तगू करेंगे और उनसे पूछेंगे कि अफगानिस्तान में जो मुसाहलियत पसंदी या रिकन्सिलिएशन का जो अमल है उसका क्या मसला है। वेलकम बैक। हम बात कर रहे हैं पाकिस्तान में अफगानिस्तान के सफ़ीर मोहतरम जनाब मोहम्मद उमर दाऊद ज़ई से। Ambassador, you talked about reconciliation. There's much talk of reconciliation in Afghanistan, and you said that there are two elements. One is reconcilable and others are irreconcilable. So how to distinguish between the two elements, and the process which was started by President Karzai, the Western countries are saying that this is an Afghan-led process of reconciliation and we support it. So how do you look at this process, and what are the prospects of its success in the near future?
Inshallah, it will succeed because it's something that is right. One can never say that any move of reconciliation is wrong. It's always right to reconcile, particularly if it's between people of the same nation, people of the same religion, people of the same tribe. I mean, after all, Taliban are from Afghanistan, they are citizens of Afghanistan, they are our brothers. So it's our obligation as the government of Afghanistan that to always strive for reconciliation, always come up with new initiatives if old one doesn't work, to bring them to reconciliation. Now, in regard to whether this will be successful or not, I would say we are hopeful, we are optimistic that it will succeed. But again, that this is also not so simple, it's complicated. One of the complications I can refer to is that we have part of the Taliban that were the emirates of Afghanistan prior to Americans' intervention in Afghanistan. And that particular part still claim that they are legitimate government of Afghanistan, and they say they are struggling to get back to Kabul. Now it's different. That group is different from those who have picked up gun and who are fighting international forces because their normal life was disrupted by presence or behavior of international forces in Afghanistan, and in some cases even behavior of government of Afghanistan. The way they were treated, they were annoyed and they pick up a gun and they fight. Now we have more obligation towards this second part. Of course, they are not so separable from each other. These two groups are merged within each other. But as Afghan government, our primary obligation is the second group. This is why we have come up with a two-tier program. One is called the reintegration and the other one is called reconciliation. The reintegration part is primarily focused on the second group because they need to be brought back to their society, to be protected, and to have a dignified life.
Some critics of this reintegration process, they are calling this process as buying the loyalties of people of Afghanistan who are not happy or who are not supporting the government. This term has been used by some Western countries that to buy the loyalties of people. Is that true?
No, you always have those critics who look at things from the negative angle. But to look at it from positive angle, you see the rest of the Afghan population, their life standard is improving day by day. Their income is improving day by day. I come from a small village outside Kabul. In my village, let's say 30 years ago, or even 10 years ago, nobody had a car. But now almost over 50% of the villagers have at least one car. And when I go to my village, I fail to recognize this my village, because things are changing so quickly. Life standard is improving. Now, those who are deprived because they have picked up gun and who are fighting, they are deprived. So we are not buying their loyalty, we are providing them with the opportunity to join the rest so that they also prosper.
Some other countries, Afghanistan's friends like Saudi Arabia, UAE and others, they were also reportedly involved in promoting this process of reconciliation between government and Taliban's or irreconcilable elements. Is this true that some foreign countries, friendly countries are helping Afghanistan? And also
we are grateful to Allah that this move of reconciliation is supported by almost every country in the world community. I don't know of any country in the world who are not helping us with the process of reconciliation, because it's the right way. But then some countries' role is more than others because of their history of involvement in the situation within and around Afghanistan. And obviously Saudi Arabia is one of them. They were deeply involved from the 80s during our days of jihad against the Soviet Union. And they still enjoy a lot of respect in Afghanistan. So it was President of Afghanistan who requested repeatedly Khadama and Haramain Sharifain that he plays a positive role in the peace process of Afghanistan. Other countries also do that. Turkey is active. Pakistan is willing to help us, and it's one of the subjects between us that we always discuss. I mean, even India changed their position. Earlier they were skeptical, but during the recent visit of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh to Kabul, he also
is supporting the process of reconciliation.
He's supporting the process of reconciliation. Even if it's a statement, that's still good. But then there are other countries that can go far beyond statement. They can practically help us, and they are always most welcome. But reconciliation is always a slow process. It was last year in summer, less than a year ago, that we had the Grand Afghan Assembly, the Lower Jirga, which mandated President to appoint a peace commission. And later that year, later last year, in September, November, President appointed the 70-member commission. And they started working, and they are making gradual and slow progress. And this is one good part of it, that they are attracting very good regional and international support.
Thank you, Ambassador. We'll continue this discussion. नाज़रीन, एक मुख्तसर ब्रेक लेते हैं और ब्रेक से वापसी के बाद हम पाकिस्तान में अफगानिस्तान के सफ़ीर से मज़ीद गुफ्तगू करेंगे कि पाकिस्तान और अफगानिस्तान के दरमियान तजारत, मईशत और दूसरे शोबों में किस तरह के ताउन जो है वो मुमकिन है और इसकी क्या नौयत होगी। Welcome back. Ambassador, when it comes to Pakistan-Afghanistan relations, there are many dimensions of these relations. One dimension is the economic cooperation and trade. Pakistan and Afghanistan have been trying to fix the problem of transit trade. Do you think that transit trade agreement is being implemented, or there are still some snags on its way and the problem needs to be fixed up?
Trade between the two countries have a long history, but the transit trade treaty is new. It's just a few months old, and only 2 months ago it began to be implemented. The treaty is a good one, but there are problems in its implementation. And those may be issues at working level that the concerned departments of both our countries should get together and settle down those technical issues and those working level issues. We are so grateful to President and Prime Minister of Pakistan who allowed trade to continue for 2 months on a normal way without those problems that are in the implementation of APTA. So we have now 2 months to solve and to settle those problems, and I'm hopeful that within the next 2 months we will be able to settle that down, and trade will happen within the framework of APTA.
So, are you in favor of including India as well in this trade Afghan transit trade agreement?
Certainly, at one point or the other, even in the beginning, this was our request, because like I referred in the earlier part, life is changing in Afghanistan. So is the farmer's life. The farmers' productions are going up, and internal markets are not sufficient, and Pakistan remains the only market which is not competitive. Farmers would like to take their products to a competitive market, and the next station could have been India for us to trade to India through Pakistan. And in APTA, there is a reference to that. The way I would put it is that Pakistan needs to trade beyond Afghanistan or through Afghanistan to Central Asia. And we need to have access to Indian markets through Pakistan. And I think it's inevitable that that will happen sometime.
One day it will happen.
One day it will happen.
India is an important player in this region, but Pakistan has certain concerns about India's role in Afghanistan. Pakistan thinks that growing influence of India, given the history of relations between India and Pakistan, can have a negative impact on Pakistan's security, and that's the major concern. You think that the Afghan government or people in Afghanistan are in favor of supporting India's expanding role, especially in terms of military presence of India in Afghanistan?
India does not have a military presence in Afghanistan. There may be some level of cooperation in the training of police, and to a smaller degree training or equipment of army. And that's exactly the same thing we have begun with Pakistan. We do have now training cooperation from Pakistan. We have a couple of students in Staff College. A couple of our officers will attend Staff College and in Police Academy. So, but that's not the issue. Sometimes the Indian presence is exaggerated here in Pakistan. Economically, yes, they have given us close to $2 billion assistance, which Pakistan is supposedly happy about it, because if somebody helps your brother, you should be happy. Now, if that assistance bring influence that goes against you, then you are not happy about it. And that we have categorically said that we will not and we will never allow anyone, including India, to use their assistance against any one of our neighbors, particularly Pakistan, because of the special relationship we have. So I would summarize in the following way. When the trust between the two of us is in deficit, obviously many things can become a misunderstanding amongst us. But when trust is complete between us,
is restored,
is completely restored, which is we are fastly moving on that direction, then none of those issues will be.
Because Pakistanis have expressed concerns about the presence of 16 Indian consulates in Afghanistan. Sometimes the Afghan government denies that this is an exaggerated figure, but then the media keeps talking about these consulates, and they are working against Pakistan's interest, especially some people here in Pakistan, even in the security setup, say that these consulates are being used to destabilize Afghanistan.
I'm glad you mentioned that figure. I had heard 14. Now I hear 16. It's exaggerated. India has 4 consulates, one in Kabul, which is part of the embassy, one in Mazar-e-Sharif, one in Herat, Kandahar, and Jalalabad. And historically, they had those 4 consulates. Iran also has exactly in those same cities. United States is opening in those same cities. Britain is opening in those same cities. And Pakistan is also having in those same cities. Now, as a matter of principle, even if there is one Indian consulate, we will not allow them to use their presence against Pakistan. And we have always said that give us some clues, some information that is telling us that any Indian consulate is involved in any activity that leads to instability in Pakistan. We will definitely stop that, and we will definitely take action that. And we have said that take our word on that.
You mentioned the cooperation between India and Afghanistan in the field of training, military training, police training, and probably the training of some other officers. Can this cooperation be expanded between Pakistan and Afghanistan? Because Pakistan has closer ties with Afghanistan, and many of the students, many of the officers who are working in bureaucracy in Afghanistan, they were educated in Pakistan. So can we expand these relations? What are the prospects?
Yes, I remember some years back it was mentioned that India gives 1,000 scholarships to Afghan students. And it is true. It's 1,000 per year, 500 to university and 500 vocational training. And then we in reply said to a Pakistani counterpart that, okay, you gave us more, we will take this. And they gave us more. Now we have more than that number in Pakistan, more than that number of civilian study scholarship. We get it from Pakistan, and students are flowing to Pakistan. And this is a very good investment for Pakistan in Afghanistan's reconstruction and development, and in our friendship, in our strengthening our friendship in an institutionalized manner. So this is the best investment. Now, as regard to the military training, I don't have the exact figure, but I'm under the impression that in that field now, as we speak, our cooperation with Pakistan in the military field is far more than our cooperation with India. That's minimum, that's very small, it's symbolic.
On the front of trade and commerce, Pakistan is supplying a lot of things to Afghanistan. But then there are some people who complain that these things, these commodities are smuggled into Afghanistan, but there is no formal trade relationship, or there is no formal arrangement for exporting these items like food items, like vegetables, like milk and other things. Is that true? And if it is true, how can we formalize this trade, and how can we increase this?
I assume you mean that there is legal trade between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which is now close to 3 billion, and there is no precedence of that. The next in line is Iran, that's about $1 billion. So it's far more than our trade with any other country. But then you find even Iranian goods in Pakistan. And the assumption is that these are smuggled through Afghanistan to Pakistan. That's the kind of relationship, people-to-people relationship we have between these 3 countries. I think progress is made in regulating some of the smuggling that take place. By regulating, I mean they don't allow them to smuggle, they rather allow them to bring it through proper channel with a bit reduced tariffs and custom duties. And I think we are making progress. One good indication is that 3 billion volume
Dollars
of
Its trade is there.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Because remember, 10 years ago, it was $26 million a year. Now from 26,
it's a great progress.
It's a great progress, and we have great potential.
We'll continue this discussion. नाज़रीन, हम एक मुख्तसर ब्रेक के बाद पाकिस्तान में अफगानिस्तान के सफ़ीर से अपनी गुफ्तगू का सिलसिला जारी रखेंगे और अब हम बात करेंगे अफगानिस्तान के फ्यूचर पर, उसके मुस्तकबिल पर, जब वहाँ से अमेरिका और नेटो की फोर्सेस जो हैं वो निकल जाएंगी. Welcome back. Ambassador, let's talk about the future of Afghanistan. The United States has started withdrawing its troops from Afghanistan. President Obama has announced that a certain number of troops will leave Afghanistan. NATO has announced that by 2014, all the troops will leave Afghanistan. So, when these troops are no more in Afghanistan, is the Afghan National Army and the police and the civil structure will be able to handle the situation? They have the capacity?
President Karzai, in his speech in Kabul conference autumn last year, he gave this date 2014 for the first time. And he declared there that our armed forces, our security forces are growing at the rate that within the next 3 to 4 years, we would be able to stand on our own feet and we wouldn't need your boots on the ground. So let's agree on a transition. And the world community heard that. Later that year in December in Lisbon conference, the NATO accepted that proposal and they declared that transition will begin and by 2014 it should be completed. So we firmly believe that yes, our armed forces will be able to take care of security by 2014. The bottom line in this whole issue is that what started in 1979 is now going to end in 2014, meaning that once again the Afghan National Army is going to be in charge of security of their country by 2014, and we are confident of that, and we will not allow anything to hinder that transition.
Right. But when the Soviet troops left Afghanistan in 1989, 88, 89, there was a vacuum created there. And then the Afghan factions started fighting with each other. There was a civil war in Afghanistan. The fear now being expressed is that once the Americans and the NATO forces leave Afghanistan, the regional powers will try to fill the vacuum, and there could be a long period of instability in Afghanistan. The regional powers will vie with each other to create their influence in Afghanistan. Do you visualize this kind of situation?
Yes, there is a big difference between the Soviet withdrawal late 80s and the NATO withdrawal early 21st century, or now, I mean 2014. The difference is that when the Soviet were withdrawing, they left everything destroyed, including institutions. And they left behind a communist regime that was not acceptable to them.
It was very unpopular.
Very unpopular. Now, as NATO leaves, they leave behind all institutions rebuilt, all infrastructure is rebuilt, and particularly security institutions are rebuilt. So there is a big difference. And also the fear that regional powers may come in. There are no regional powers now. Those local warlords, that's just a name now, they don't exist. Yes, Taliban exists, some Hizb Islami exist, and they're fighting foreign forces. But those regional warlords per se, they don't exist. The only thing that exists now is the national security force.
We were hearing a lot about the Western aid which was coming to Afghanistan. A lot of promises were made with the people of Afghanistan that they will pour in huge funds to rebuild Afghanistan, to make it a prosperous country. Do you think that these Western countries and the donors they have lived up to their promises, or they are lacking on this?
No, I think in terms of volume of assistance, the Western world has been generous enough, and we are grateful for that. And this is the beauty of our part of society, that when somebody do good to us, we acknowledge that and we thank them. And we should thank them because they have helped us quite generously. But in regard to managing those funds, there has been problem. Mischanneling, mismanagement, corruption, all those did exist. On the other hand, I mean, 10 years for a country that was destroyed, much below zero. And now when you go and see the level of reconstruction, it's enormous. It's even for me, it's sometimes unbelievable when I go to provinces and to districts. So if there is responsible for some incomplete work, it's two things. It's mismanagement and it's terrorism. These are the two that's responsible, not the generosity of the Western world. And also I need to clarify one thing, that by 2014, that means the boots will leave, not aid, not assistance, not trade. Their trade will boost, their assistance will boost, and there would be more focus on development. The only thing that would leave is boots, which we welcome that.
Some experts believe that the progress that you have mentioned in your session is uneven. In cities like Kabul, yes, it is developed, and some other cities are also quite developed now, good infrastructure, roads, etc. But in some parts where, of course, you mentioned the security problems are very acute, the progress is not at that level. So this uneven progress can create problems following the withdrawal of the foreign troops?
No, that's not true. It's a lack of information or incomplete information. Before the war, I remember as a teenager, we used to say we have two countries, Kabul and Afghanistan, because Kabul was very different. It was like Europe, and Afghanistan was in Middle Age. When we started 10 years ago, this is the fact, we were cautious of it. In fact, we did a lot development work at rural, in backward provinces. In Kabul, you still don't have all the roads paved. Now only focus is shifted to roads in Kabul. Just to give you an example, about a year ago, I visited Paktika. The capital of Paktika is Sharana, and it's a newly created province. So I was expecting a very backward village type of provincial capital. And by the time our helicopter circled the city, I couldn't believe it. There was so much private government and military installations that I couldn't believe that this is Paktika. And as we were coming back from Paktika on helicopter towards Kabul, before the war, we had only one Pakka road that was linking south to center. And now I could see a stream of Pakka roads, of metal roads that were separating main roads to districts. So that is, I reject that. In fact, it's on the contrary. More focus this time is made on rural. Now, what could be true is that within provinces, then some areas may have absorbed more aid. And that's not because of security. One of the provinces that complain most is Bamiyan. And Bamiyan has always been peaceful. And there is not much development work that's done there. They complain and they say, we should have been fighting, therefore we would also have received more development work if they compare themselves with other provinces in the south. So it has not been because of security, it has been because of management. In areas where we had a good governor, good district governor, good local team, they have been able to attract more and more assistance.
Lastly, Mr. Ambassador, Pakistan and the United States are locked in a bitterness because of this war on terror, because of their differences on how to go about it. The United States is demanding to do more, and Pakistan says that we have done enough. So do you think that this divergence of opinion or divergence of views between the United States and Pakistan can also affect Afghanistan and the war on terror?
Well, I'm not very well tuned to relationship between Pakistan and United States, but from a distance, the way I see it, my interpretation is that sometimes those temporary divergences result in further strengthening friendship and partnership. And I'm hoping for that, because we need that strong partnership for all the causes that we have within this region. In my humble opinion, I think Afghanistan, Pakistan, and United States, in many ways, we are natural allies, and we must find ways to overcome minor differences that we have. Of course, we always be transforming our relationship. Like we don't want to continue with the way our relationship with the United States, with the way we had in the past 9 years, because in the past 9 years, we were not always treated as equals, as a free independent nation. From now onward, we want to be treated like that. And so what Pakistan always have wanted it, and they would want. So the nature of our relationship could change based on circumstances around us. But history has taught us that the three of us are natural allies.
थैंक यू एम्बेसडर। नाज़रीन, हमारे साथ थे पाकिस्तान में अफगानिस्तान के सफ़ीर जनाब मोहम्मद उमर दाऊद ज़ई, और हमने उनसे गुफ्तगू किया पाकिस्तान अफगानिस्तान के ताल्लुकात के हवाले से, और इसके अलावा पाकिस्तान के जो कंसर्न्स हैं अफगानिस्तान में, ख़ुसूसन हिंदुस्तान की मौजूदगी और अस्करी मौजूदगी के हवाले से, और पाकिस्तान और अफगानिस्तान के मुस्तकबिल के ताल्लुकात के हवाले से हमने उनसे गुफ्तगू की है। Ambassador, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
It was a pleasure for me too. Thanks a lot.